Picture this. You're standing in line at customs. The usual routine. Passports out, questions answered. Nothing unusual. But what if the person in front of you handed over a passport from a country that doesn't exist? What if that person insisted their homeland was real and had been real for 1,000 years? And what if the next morning they vanished from a locked, guarded hotel room without a trace? This is the story of the man from Taured, and it's either proof that parallel universes exist or one of the most elaborate cons in history. July 1954. Tokyo's Haneda Airport. A routine flight touches down on the tarmac. Passengers file out into the sweltering summer heat. Among them, a middle-aged businessman. Caucasian, bearded, well-dressed. Nothing remarkable about him at all. He speaks fluent French, even some Japanese. He's confident, calm, professional. At the immigration counter, he hands over his passport with the casual air of someone who's done this 1,000 times before. The customs officer flips it open, frowns, looks again. The passport appears completely legitimate. Official stamps, proper formatting, recent visa entries from across Europe and Asia. There's just one problem. It's issued by the country of Taured. Now, immigration officers see a lot of weird stuff, but this guy has never heard of Taured. Neither has his supervisor or anyone else at Haneda Airport, because Taured doesn't exist. Awkward. The questioning begins. Where are you from? What's the purpose of your visit? The man's answers only make things stranger. He insists Taured is real. Not just real, it's been a kingdom for nearly 1,000 years. He's genuinely confused by their confusion. Officials pull out a world map. Show us where Taured is. Without hesitation, the man points to a spot in the Pyrenees, right where the tiny Principality of Andorra sits between France and Spain. This is wrong, he says, baffled. Taured should be right here. It's always been here. The interrogation deepens, and this is where things get really weird. This guy has documentation, lots of it. Driver's licenses from Taured, business cards, currency from multiple European countries in his wallet. His passport is loaded with stamps. He's clearly a seasoned traveler. He claims he's a businessman, here to meet contacts in Tokyo. Has a hotel reservation, company connections. Officials start making calls. The company he claims to work for, never heard of him. The hotel where he says he has a reservation, no record of any booking. The Tokyo contact he's supposed to meet, they have no idea who he is. Yet all his paperwork looks authentic. Official seals, government stamps, everything bearing the marks of the mysterious nation of Taured. It's like something out of the Twilight Zone, except with more bureaucracy. By now, Japanese immigration officials are thinking this guy might be a smuggler or a spy, someone using an elaborate cover story. They decide to hold him overnight while they figure this out. The man is placed in a nearby hotel under guard. 2 officers posted outside his door. His room is several floors up. No balcony. Windows secured. There's no way out except past the guards. The traveler seems nervous. He keeps insisting this is all a big misunderstanding, that it'll be cleared up soon. He has no idea what's about to happen. The next morning, officials arrive to continue their questioning. The room is empty. The man from Taured has completely disappeared. No signs of escape, no struggle. The guards swear they heard nothing during the night, yet somehow, this enigmatic traveler had simply evaporated into thin air. And here's the kicker. Every single item belonging to him is gone too. The Taured passport, his documents, his foreign currency, his luggage. He's been erased from reality. Officials search everywhere. Contact the airport. Check if he somehow caught a flight out. Nothing. No trace was ever found. Now, this is an incredible story, the kind that makes your brain itch with questions. But here's the thing. When you start digging into the historical record, the trail goes cold fast. For an event this dramatic, a man vanishing from police custody, you'd expect newspaper headlines, police reports, some kind of documentation. But there's nothing. No contemporary records from 1954. Japanese news archives are silent about any disappearing interdimensional traveler. In fact, the story doesn't appear in print until decades later. That's a pretty big red flag. So where did this legend actually come from? The earliest reference appears in British Parliament records from 1960. A member of Parliament mentions a curious case. A man prosecuted in Japan for using a passport in a language unknown, issued in Tamanrasset, capital of the sovereign state of Taured. Notice the spelling, Taured, not Taured. 2 weeks later, a Canadian newspaper runs an article about John Allen Kuchar Zagrus. This guy claimed to be a naturalized Ethiopian and an intelligence agent for Egypt's Colonel Nasser. According to the report, Zagrus had invented an entire country, complete with a capital city, a people, and even a fake language, all recorded in a counterfeit passport. Any places so romantically named ought to exist, the article noted dryly, but they don't. This was passport fraud, pure and simple. The real John Zagrus was arrested in Tokyo, taken to court. He didn't disappear into the ether. He was sentenced to prison time. He even attempted suicide in court when the verdict came down. After serving his time, he was deported. End of story. Turns out the only parallel universe involved was the one inside this guy's imagination. So how did a 1960 passport fraud case become a 1954 parallel universe legend? The original con happened in 1960, but over the next 2 decades, that mundane truth would twist into something far more mysterious. The transformation happened gradually, through decades of retellings. In 1964, writer Jacques Berger recounted a version where a man from Taured was arrested in Japan and ended up in a psychiatric hospital. Then, in 1981, a book called The Directory of Possibilities included a passage about a mystery man at a Tokyo airport with a passport from a non-existent country. This seems to be where the modern legend crystallized. The authors likely drew from those 1960 news reports about Zagrus, but they misspelled Taured as Taured. They omitted names and outcomes, gave the story a spookier, unsolved vibe. From there, the tale took on a life of its own. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, internet forums and paranormal websites began circulating the Man from Taured story, each retelling adding a little extra spice. The detail about pointing to Andorra on the map, added later. The precise year 1954, added later. The vanishing from a guarded hotel room, you guessed it, added later. None of these retellings cite any official source. It's always presented as a curious anecdote passed along without hard evidence. Classic urban legend behavior. Before we jump into parallel universes, let's consider the mundane possibilities. Maybe the entire story was invented for entertainment. A writer creates a compelling tale, inspired by real events, and it snowballs. The fact that the legend's first major appearance was in a speculative book, not a news report, supports this idea. This is the most concrete explanation. The man from Taured was John Allen Kuchar Zagrus, the fraudster arrested in 1960. Zagrus literally invented a country and language, printed a phony passport, successfully traveled the world until Japanese immigration caught him. The modern legend lifts elements directly from his case: the fake country name, the multiple visas, the claims of official business. But it omits the prosaic ending and replaces it with a spooky disappearance. In reality, Zagrus was caught, tried, and deported. He didn't pull a Houdini from a locked room. Maybe Taured was a misheard or mistranslated reference to the Tuareg people of the Sahara, or even Andorra itself, which in the 1950s was obscure enough that some officials might not recognize it. Through miscommunication and retelling, an ordinary case became extraordinary. These explanations strip away the sci-fi aura. We don't need alternate universes to understand the tale. But where's the fun in that? Part of the story's enduring appeal is how perfectly it fits paranormal theories. This is the big one: the idea that the man literally came from another dimension where Taured was real. In his universe, maybe Taured existed where Andorra sits in ours. Through some cosmic glitch, he slipped into our reality. His confusion wasn't acting. Our world genuinely was different from what he knew. The disappearance? He was yanked back to his home dimension, leaving no trace in our world. It's the ultimate glitch in the Matrix scenario. Thrilling to imagine, even if there's no evidence it happened. A variation on the parallel universe idea. Maybe Taured existed in our world's past or future, and the man somehow moved through time. Perhaps he was from an alternate timeline where World War II had different outcomes, where borders formed differently. Maybe the man was a spy using a cleverly forged passport. When Japanese authorities caught him, intelligence agencies intervened. The CIA or another service quietly took custody and spirited him away, erased his presence to protect ongoing operations. It's plausible in the Cold War context. but it doesn't explain his genuine confusion about geography. The most outlandish theory: government agents realized the man truly was from another dimension and covered it up to prevent panic. Somewhere in a vault are secret files on the Taured incident, proof that dimensional travelers have visited us. Pure speculation, but it adds an extra layer of conspiracy thriller mystique. Modern fact-checkers have thoroughly debunked the sensational claims. Both Snopes and Full Fact found that while there was a real incident with a fake passport, nobody performed a magical vanishing act from a secure room. The elaborate disappearance appears nowhere in 1960 reports. Critics point out logical problems with the supernatural version. If a man truly vanished from custody at an international airport, it would have been huge news. Yet no such headlines exist. The total lack of names in most tellings is another giveaway. When the story finally attaches a name, John Zagrus, it ceases to be inexplicable. Every eerie detail has a mundane explanation. Strange passport, forgery, unknown language, gibberish, extensive travel, lacks post-war passport inspection, his confusion, an act. No experts have ever concluded the man was from a parallel universe. That's a claim only seen in dubious social media posts. The timeline of the legend's emergence suggests pure myth-making. If this happened in 1954, why did nobody write about it until the 1980s? By all credible accounts, the Taured story is fascinating folklore, not factual reporting. The rational part of me knows this mystery has been solved. It was a clever con, not a traveler from parallel Earth. But the allure isn't easily dispelled. With today's technology, it's much harder to fake identity so thoroughly. Biometric passports, instant communications, surveillance everywhere. A modern John Zagrus would be unmasked in minutes and plastered on social media soon after. The age of the passport hoaxer might be over, yet the idea taps into something deeper: our fascination with parallel worlds and the unknown. Science hasn't proven the multiverse, but it hasn't ruled it out either. If there truly are infinite parallel realities, maybe once in a million years the boundaries blur. Just enough for someone to cross over. If a dimensional traveler showed up tomorrow, would we recognize them or dismiss them as a prank or mental health case? Maybe the greatest lesson is how easily a determined deceiver can exploit our assumptions, and conversely, how a genuinely extraordinary event might be dismissed as deception. The man from Taured sits at the intersection of fact and fantasy. On one hand, it's a solved case of forgery. On the other, it's a modern myth that asks, what if reality isn't what we think? The lack of evidence hasn't stopped the story from spreading. If anything, the unanswered questions make it more alluring. If you enjoy diving into this mystery, separating fact from fiction, exploring the possibilities, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the strange and unexplained. Because the next time I'm at an airport and someone hands over an odd-looking passport, I'll definitely take a closer look. Reality is often stranger than fiction, or at least more creative. Could another man from nowhere story happen again? It's unlikely, but not impossible to imagine. And imagination, after all, is where the man from Taured truly came from.